What's going on, guys? Minty here, and I want to start off this video by saying thank you guys for all the support I just got on my latest story time. I did not expect that skipping story to go so famous or just a lot of views, and I just want to say to everyone that watched that and everyone that's watching this that from the bottom of my heart I want to thank you guys. This is sort of a hobby for me since I work as a designer, a graphic designer, but it's always been a dream of mine to do this. And yeah, I just want to say thank you guys for sticking around and actually watching my story times. I didn't think, like I said, I didn't think that story time would have gotten a lot of views or a good story to tell. So as promised, your boy Minty here is going to tell you another story, a youthful story. This was when I was really young, as as a thank you to you guys, and just to be a man of my word, since I said if the skipping school story or skipping class story got a lot of attention, that I would do another one. So here we are. So this story takes place back in elementary school, and it was one of my first kind of memories that stuck with me in elementary school. And you might be wondering, Minty, how do you remember something from elementary school? There's no way, you're lying right now. And to be fair, this took place in 4th grade, so it wasn't like early elementary school. This was like conscious gaining elementary school, getting ready for middle school type of age, if that makes sense, right? But anywho, so let me set the scene for you guys, right? So, elementary school, I'm in 4th grade when this story time happens, and this is kind of one of the most craziest interactions I've had with a teacher ever, I think, throughout my obviously 12 years of public school and stuff. This is by far one of the craziest teacher stories I have. So I really hope you guys enjoy this. But anywho, back to the point, right? So 4th grade, this teacher, we'll just call her Mrs. Stevens, right? Obviously that's not her name, but you guys know the drill by now. Mrs. Stevens, right? So Mrs. Stevens was my 4th grade teacher, and Mrs. Stevens is one of those teachers that were around for a while and was really respected, is what everyone was saying to, us and just staff would say that, and you'd overhear that, right? That she's been here for a while and she's been at this elementary school for a while and she's just one of the better teachers, is what, everyone around the school was saying, like staff and parents and stuff, and even some kids were saying that. But let me tell you right now, I don't know who told them that, or if maybe they experienced a different woman, or teacher I should say, but this lady, Miss Stevens, was not at all in the slightest the same person that these people were talking about, right? And we'll get into that, but I just want that to be known now that this was not the same woman that everyone was talking about, or at least what I've heard from her, right? Everyone was telling us oh, she's such a great teacher, and she is very professional and all this other stuff, right? So anywho, context, right? 4th grade, and 4th grade me, right? Young child Minty here, right? I think a lot of us can say growing up that we didn't really keep clean, maybe in the younger ages, that we didn't understand keeping a clean room. I mean, what 4th grader has a super clean room? You know what I mean? I feel like every 4th grader had some type of messy room, or just messy habit, or messy personality with certain things, whether it was their room or cleaning up after themselves. I'm pretty sure we can all relate to that, right? But anywho, so I was one of those kids that I was really kind of lazy, and I still am lazy sometimes, not gonna lie to you guys, and that's something that obviously I'm working on, and if you guys struggle with that, you're not alone. So anywho, but yeah, that was one of the things that I struggled with, especially as a 4th grader, and I feel, again, a lot of us can relate to being a messy child, or just not really an organized child. And in a minute now, you guys are going to see how this relates to my story, or the title of the video. But anywho, so yeah, I wasn't really a organized person, you could say, especially when I was younger. I'm still not super organized now, but it's gotten a lot better, I'd say. I mean, I'd hope, right? So yeah, 4th grade, Mrs. Stevens' class, or Mrs. Steven is my teacher, and funny enough, right, I was talking to one of my friends about this in Discord when we were just playing some skate, and he reminded me of it by saying like, "Oh, I watched," because he told me he watched one of my videos, and I was like, "Oh, thank you," and I was telling him like, "I'm just shocked on how much you guys loved it," and I was telling him all this, and he goes, "I bet you have some more like crazy stories of school," and he got me thinking about like younger me, because he's like, "What about like when you were in middle school, elementary school? Did anything crazy happen?" And he kind of reminded me of this story. So let me stop dilly-dallying and actually, start telling this story, right? So Mrs. Shanti was a teacher that everyone praised, and my class, for some reason, there was like 4 to 5 students, including me, that she just did not like, and she always would have these like meltdowns. And at first, we just thought, the bad kids were getting her mad, but she would have meltdowns over like small things too. Like I remember one time, this girl didn't do her homework, and Miss Stevens literally was like, "If you're not going to do your homework, you're not going to get it to the next grade. This isn't going to fly in middle school." Like, just ripping into this girl. And I felt so bad because, for context, this girl, I've never seen her not do her homework in 4th grade, or just in general. Like, I went to high school with this girl. I went to middle school with this girl as well. I've never not seen her do her work. So it just caught me off guard to see this teacher ripping into her, right? And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, oh my god, this teacher is ripping, and I mean ripping into this poor girl, right? And then she turns her attention to me and some of the other kids. And I won't say their names, obviously, but for context, we'll give them some fake names. These kids that I'm hanging with, we'll just call them one Josh. Then there was one that was, we'll just call him, I don't know, Mike. And then there was another person, I forget his real name, but for fake name, we'll just call him Casey, right? Or Kaysen. So I'm sitting with all of these 3, and Kaysen and Josh were very like loud troublemakers, like just loudmouths, but everyone thought they were funny at the time, being a 4th grader and not having the best maturity. When they would act up in class, it was funny to a lot of us. So anywho, they were always told to, move their desks to the back of the class, because for some reason Miss Stevens thought that was a punishment, which I don't understand why, because, again, you're telling kids that already don't want to pay attention to go to the back of the class. It almost seems, like, counterproductive. Like, I don't know. If I was a teacher, I wouldn't tell my students to go sit in the back of the class, just because I think that would be less of a punishment if they're disturbing the class. I feel like having them sit in the front or just actually go to the office would probably be a better scenario there. But anywho, so yeah, she had those kids sit in the back of the class. And you want to know something crazy, dude? She had me sit in the back of the class. And you want to know what her reason was? Was because my desk was unorganized. Yeah, dude. Because my desk was unorganized. This teacher, Miss Stevens, had me sit in the back with all the kids that she deemed as like troublemakers or just disruptions or whatever. And I'm thinking to myself, why am I back here? I'm sitting back here because I have an unorganized desk. Like, it just didn't make sense to my 4th grade mind at the time. It really confused me, and I'm just like, I do not think I deserve to be back here. Like, for some reason, I'm just like, I was so confused, right? And I remember this time where I was like arguing with her. I was like, I don't think I should be sitting back here. And she goes, well, maybe if you organized your desk instead of worrying about racing the recess, you wouldn't be sitting back there. And I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, I'm practically begging her to get closer, or not in the back, to actually learn. And she's keeping me back there because my desk is unorganized. I mean, I'm a 4th grader. I don't know. Her expectation of like every student is going to be neat just was mind-blowing to me. I'm like, you want us 4th graders to have a completely organized desk. Like, it just didn't make sense to me, right? So after that, right, that being said, she had me sit back there, and this was, to be honest with you guys, this was like the first time I really started to hate school, just in general. Like, that's where my passion of like, oh, I don't really like school, it doesn't interest me, came from, I think, because that is like one of my earliest memories that wasn't preschool. Like, obviously I have glimpses of preschool in my mind, but when it comes to actual like sitting down, learning and stuff, that was my first like real like negative experience of middle school, just because, or not middle school, elementary school, sorry. Middle school. That was my real, like, first negative experience of just teachers and school in general, right? Yeah, elementary school was my first negative experience, which sounds crazy because a lot of people, elementary school is just goofy, fun. They just remember, like, recess and, silly things from pre-K and just whatever, right? So it just, I don't know, that was, like, my first negative view on school. But anywho, so yeah, I'm practically begging to sit in the front of this class, like, to actually be able to focus and see and pay attention, like, begging. So it just blew my mind. Like, I thought it was crazy. But yeah, so some time passes from this, right? And I'm still in the back of the class. And then one day, Kason and Josh, and this other kid all just wild her up, like, get her so angry to the point that she goes back there and she flips two of the kids' desks and sends them to the principal office. So I'm thinking to myself, is she allowed to do that? Mind you, she didn't hit anyone, but she just told them to stand up and then flipped their desk, right? So then I eventually am just sitting back there, right? And I'm like, oh my God. And then she gets more mad because they continue to do things. So then she comes back there, right? And she's like, you guys need to cut it out, right? And she's telling us, like, you need to knock it off. You need to stop doing that. Like, knock it off before I send all of you there. And I'm thinking to myself, send all of us where? Like, I'm not saying anything. I'm sitting there, like I said before, trying to learn since I'm so far back. And I'm just, like, mind blown that she's, like, now threatening the back of the class to send all of us, like, to the office. Like, it just blew my mind that this lady was letting, like, Jacob and Kason and all these kids, or just whatever, like, I can't remember their fake names. I'm sorry, guys. Today's been kind of rough, but just all of these kids, the 3 to 4 kids that are sitting in the back with me, threatening all of us to send us to the office. Like, it blew my mind. I'm like, there's no way you think this is okay, right? Like, as a teacher. Granted, she probably was close to retirement. Miss Stevens was, again, there for a while, and I don't know why she wasn't retired, but she wasn't for some reason. So, and we're gonna get into that as well in a second. But yeah, so she's, like, flipped those 2 kids' desks and then threatening to send everyone to the office, and I'm just like, this lady needs to chill out, right? And then eventually recess comes, and I'm thinking, okay, maybe that was just, like, a one-time thing. She just got that mad or whatever, right? Like, I'm not thinking much of it. So I go to recess, I'm not thinking much of it. I'm telling my friends what happened, and they don't believe it either because they had a different teacher, and they're in shock, right? And I end up going home, and I end up telling my parents. And at the time, my parents, like, I used to lie a lot. I don't know why, but younger me, I just lied so much. So I remember, right, my parents not believing me. They're being like, oh, you're just being dramatic. You just don't want to go to school. Like, not believing me. And it kind of hurt. But at the same token, I understood it because, again, I was always lying to them, which isn't right. Don't lie to your parents. Don't lie in general. It's a good way just to, like, hurt people you care about. So if you guys take anything away from this story, please don't lie to people, especially people you care about. Just don't do it. It can ruin a lot of things in your life, so don't do it. Anywho, besides the point, back to the story. So yeah, my parents at the time didn't believe me. They thought I was lying, that I just didn't want to go to school because, it's all I would ever say is, oh, I just don't want to go to school, or I just would always complain about school. So they're just thinking that, I don't want to go to school, and that I'm just making this up, that these 2 kids got their desks flipped and all their stuff spilled out because they were talking back and being disrespectful or just being annoying to, Miss Stevens. So it was just very crazy to me. But anywho, so after all that happens, right, and they don't believe me, I'm like, whatever, right, like, yada yada yada, like, I'm just trying not to let it bother me, right? So then I remember, I was like, oh, well, maybe that, like I said earlier, maybe it's just a one-time thing. And I remember talking to one of my friends that night on my console. I was like, dude, you're not going to believe this. And he's like, what? So, like, I'm telling him, I'm like, yeah, she flipped the desk because Jacob and Kason were saying stuff and just talking back to her and disrupting the class, trying to be silly. And he goes, so she flipped the desk because two students were being like distractions and stuff. And I was like, yeah, dude, she flipped the desk. And he's just like, couldn't believe it. And I kept trying to tell him, like, dude, she's crazy. Like, I don't know why she didn't just send him to the office. She threatened him, but she didn't do that at first. She actually flipped their desk first. And my friend at the time just didn't believe me. And I'm just like, dude, you're just gonna have to like wait and see. I guarantee you she's gonna do it again. And me and him are like just not taking bets on it, but like we're like both arguing like, oh, she wouldn't do that. And I'm saying, dude, I guarantee you there's gonna be a day where she does it again. And I don't know why I said this to him. I don't know why I jinxed myself by saying this. I don't think that was smart in the first place at all to say. But, you know, me being just dumb and stuff, I said it to him. And he was like, yeah, dude, I think you're just, you know, lying. You're full of poop or full of crap. And I'm like, all right, dude. Like, he just didn't believe me. I'm like, all right, dude, watch. So, anywho, after that, you know, I get off, I go to sleep, and, you know, I continue the next couple of days as normal. You know, nothing crazy, nothing different, just normal going to school, elementary school things, you know, just doing my work, playing recess, you know, still keeping my desk unorganized because I want to rush to recess, you know, I got places to be, you know. Didn't really care about my desk in 4th grade at all. And I remember I don't remember the day exactly. I just remember coming back from recess and Miss Stevens looked like just pissed or annoyed or just, she did not look like in a good mood at all, right? And I was super worried. I'm like, I wonder what's going on, right? Like I'm genuinely like worried about it. Excuse me. And I'm like, she's definitely pissed. Like something's going on. And I remember Jacob was like, should I mess with her? And I remember telling him, like, dude, let's just leave her alone. Like, she does not look happy, right? And she sees me talking to Jacob. She goes, can you guys be quiet back there? And I'm like, okay. And Jacob's like, okay, we'll be quiet. And then he continues to talk to Kaysen and now me. And I'm like, dude, did you not just hear what she said? And for the life of me, I just don't know if Jacob just didn't care, if today he wanted to be a disruption and, you know, make people like laugh. I don't know, right? So I remember I was like, dude, you gotta stop talking, right? Like I was telling both of them, like, dude, stop, you're gonna get us in trouble. And eventually Miss Stevens just turns around, she's like, that's it. She goes back there and she goes, you guys want to keep talking, then you can go to the office. And one of them, I forgot who it was, I think it was Kaysen, was like, yeah, I'm not going to the office. And I was like, dude, there's no way you just talked back to Miss Stevens. Like, I genuinely was in such shock because I'm like, I've never seen a kid do that before, right? So I'm like, there's no way. So after he does that, right, Miss Stevens just stops and just looks at us, and I'm like, oh no. And she comes over there, and I don't know why, I don't know if that's what set her off or just the day or just us in general as a class, because she would always say, right, she'd always tell us like, oh, this is the worst group of 4th graders I ever got. You guys are so immature. You guys just don't listen. You don't do this. Like, just for some reason, just so like mad at us for just being like, I guess, the worst class she had. And I kind of felt bad, right? And I remember after she was saying all that, right, back to what we were saying. So she's telling us like, oh, like she just, for some reason that must have just snapped. Like she must have just been fed up throughout the year, right? So she goes over to Kaysen's desk and she flips it and then tells him, go to the office. And just flips it, everything falls out, and I'm just like, oh my god, she did it again, I was right. And I thought she was going to stop there. But then she goes to Jacob's desk and she flips his. And I'm like, oh my god. And then she goes to one of my best friends at the time, we'll just call her Alex. She goes to Alex's desk and she flips her desk. And it almost hits her, and I'm like, oh my god. And then she comes to my desk and she goes, so you just want to keep your desk unorganized, right? You don't want to listen? And before I could say anything, dude, she flips the desk and it landed on my knees, specifically my right knee. Just completely just assaulted me with the desk by flipping it onto me. Like, she told me to stand up, and before I could even get out of my chair, because, you know, the desk, those like crappy desks, I don't know if you've ever experienced those, where they're like just a like messy, just connected desk, like there's an armrest that's connected to the chair. Anywho, right? So she flips that on me, and it lands on my knee, on my right leg, just lands on it. And to this day, dude, every time I crouch or I bend down, like if I'm working out and I'm squatting, or just any type of movement where I squat, my knee makes like a paper bag sound, like a crunch. And it doesn't hurt, and I've been to the doctors and they've never said anything about it, but to this day, she definitely damaged my knee somewhat. And I was pissed, dude. I was crying. I was upset. And it was so embarrassing because I'm crying in front of all my friends because this crazy teacher, Miss Stevens, decides to just flip a desk on a fourth grader, bro. On multiple fourth graders. She just decides to flip a desk. And I was just in such disbelief. I'm like, there's just no way. You know? There's just no way. Like, it caught me so off guard. I'm like, there's just no way she decides to flip my desk and all these other kids' desks. And I was just so upset. I was crying. It was bad, dude. It was bad. And I remember going to the office and telling them that. And then I remember not going back to her class and her being dragged out of her class or something like that, right? I don't remember exactly what happened after that, after the desk got flipped on me. I just remember going home. I don't know if it was a half day or just, I remember going home and telling my parents about it. And my parents were pissed. So they called the school. And the principal was like, not like talking down to my parents, but like explaining to them like, oh, we already know, we have the situation handled. And my mom was furious. She's like, you have this teacher flipping desks on people and flipped the desk on my kid, and it hit his knee. And like, my mom was flipping out. I mean, my dad was upset too, but my mom was flipping out, like super pissed. And rightfully so, because again, someone is assaulting her child with a desk with these plastic tiny like elementary school desks. So it's completely understandable on why she's pissed, right? Like any parent would be pissed. And I just remember hearing like her being like, well, yeah, I don't care if it's other parents, this kid or this teacher hurt my kid. Like she just like was going off. And I remember texting one of my friends that was in that class. I'm like, dude, did your parents call the principal in like school? And he was like, yeah, dude. And I was like, oh no, right? And then I'm just like, I wonder what's gonna happen. Like the anticipation killed me because I had no clue what was left for her. Like I have no clue, right? So after texting my friend that, I'm like, whatever, and I get on my Xbox, my 360 at the time, and I just start playing Minecraft, and I try to forget about the day, right? I'm like, whatever, you know, I'm thinking I'm gonna have to go back and deal with her tomorrow, but it is what it is, right? It's whatever. And I come back to school, and the principal's in my class when I get in there in the morning, and this random woman, and I'm like, oh no. I'm thinking like, you know, something happened, or there's more to like this, like I don't know. For some reason I was just super worried, right? And the principal's like, okay, class, so due to recent events, Miss Stevens will no longer be with us. And I'm thinking, oh my god, did she get like suspended? And he's like, and I can't tell you guys why or for how long or whatever's going on, but Miss Stevens will just not be with us for this year for the time being. I think he said for like the time being or something. And he introduces this young lady, and she's like, this will be your new teacher for the time being, Mrs. Lee, we'll call her. I don't know what her real name is. I don't remember. All I remember about Mrs. Lee is she was a lot younger and a lot prettier, and she played guitar, which was pretty cool. And if we were good for her, like, sorry to get off topic, but if we were good for her, like, for the week, on Fridays, she would play, like, her bass guitar for us, and it was actually really cool. Like, one of the coolest things I think I've ever seen a teacher do or just have, like, for their class. But anywho, back to the topic. So yeah, we get introduced to Mrs. Lee, and Mrs. Lee is like our new 4th grade teacher for the time being. And like, we're shocked. We're all like getting theories of like, did she get fired? Did she get suspended? And we didn't know. And we didn't know for a long time actually. And I have an update on what happened. But for the longest time, we had no clue, right? Like I had no clue. Kason and Jacob and those kids back there and Alex, we all had no clue what happened to Miss Stevens. So Miss Lee was our teacher indefinitely after that. And I remember we'd always try to ask her like, hey Miss Lee, when is Miss Stevens coming back? And she'd always say, oh, I don't know, I'm just here for now, like I'm your teacher for now, guys. I I don't know, I can't answer that. Like, she would eventually just, like, cracked, and she was just telling us, like, oh, I can't answer that. I can't answer when she's coming back. And I'm just like, dude, she definitely got fired. And some of my friends were like, no, she got suspended. She'll be back. And I'm like, no, dude. She already was old enough to retire. And that was probably the last straw. Like, that probably kicked her out. Like, that probably lost her job. Or, you know, that, like, gig or whatever. And she just taught us the rest of the year. Miss Lee was chill. She didn't really care about my desk being unorganized. She didn't make anyone sit in the back in a line. Yeah. I forgot to mention, Miss Stevens made us sit in a line, dude. Like a straight line, like a horizontal line in the back of the class. While other people were able to sit, like, in a group of 4, like in a square. So we were all alone and kind of separated. Versus the other students that Miss Stevens thought were good, I guess, or considered good, got to sit in groups. Which is pretty fucked up, you know, to isolate some 4th graders because they're misbehaving. I mean, it's not super fucked up because, you know, that's kind of what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to put kids in timeout, I guess, or whatever your beliefs are on parenting and stuff, but besides the point. So I thought at the time it was messed up, right, for whatever reason, but besides the point. So yeah, now you might be wondering, well, what happened to Miss Steven, Minty? You can't just leave us on this cliffhanger of not telling us what happened to Miss Steven. You want to know what happened to Miss Steven after the year and we finished it? I never seen her again. Like, I never seen her again for as long as at that school. For 5th grade, for middle school, for high school. I never seen her, never ran into her. And then one day, one of my friends, the best friend that I talked about losing, right, at the time, Ricky, right? Ricky comes up to me, and he's like, dude, I seen Miss Stevens. I'm like, no way. I was like telling him, I'm like, where did you see her? He's like, dude, Miss Stevens works at this place, and I can't say the name of it, but it's a type of orchard, and it's a famous type of beverage, we'll say. I can't specifically say what it is, because, you know, I don't want to promote that type of stuff, and it's not really good for you, but she ended up working at this, like, beverage company after, and she was supposed to be retired. So me and my friend are like, oh, dude, that's terrible. And we just felt bad, but at the same token, I'm like, that's kind of what she gets. And I joked with him. I was like, yeah, dude, she fucked up my knee, dude. So, you know, that's on her. And we just laughed it off. But anywho, guys, I just wanted to wrap that up and tell you that. I was thinking of that today while I was at work, and I figured I'd hop on here and tell that story. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed my crazy 4th grade teacher story. I feel like it's something that you guys deserve to hear, especially after the love, like I said in the beginning of the video, that you showed. I think this is something you guys needed to hear, and I hope you guys enjoy it. If you did, all I ask, please at least, you know, drop a sub or a like. It's free, you know, and if you enjoyed it, it helps your boy out. And like I said, as long as this video gets some love, hopefully I will get you guys another story time. I do also have I do have some gameplay for you guys, like actual gameplay and audio. If you guys want to see like gameplay of like peak or like popular games, I do have some, so please let me know in the comments as well if you want to see maybe some live streaming or actual just me playing games and talking to y'all. But besides the point, this is your boy Minty, and yeah, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and see you next time, or I should say, see you in the next one.